The Vexery Empire had been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. Their warriors stood 8 feet tall, with scales harder than steel covering their bodies. They had sharp claws, powerful tails, and teeth that could bite through metal. In all their history, they had never lost a war. They had never met a species they could not crush. "Hi, Commander." Zorith sat on his throne aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion. He was old even by Vexery standards, having lived for over 300 years. He had conquered more than 40 worlds himself. His name was spoken with fear across 100 star systems. His intelligence officer approached with a report. "Commander, our scouts have found a new species in an unexplored region. They call themselves humans. They live on a small blue planet they call Earth." Zoroth looked at the images on his display screen. He saw creatures with soft skin, no claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. They were small and weak-looking. Their teeth were flat and useless for combat. "These things have achieved space travel?" Zorath asked with disbelief. "Yes, Commander. They have colonies on several worlds in their star system. But their technology is primitive compared to ours. Their fastest ships would take months to travel distances we cover in days." Zorath made a sound that passed for laughter among his kind. "Send them the standard message. They have 1 day to surrender completely. If they refuse, we will destroy them." The message was sent across all human communication channels. It appeared on screens all over Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. The message was simple and direct. Surrender everything or die. No negotiation. No mercy. Captain Daniel Price was playing cards with his crew when the alert came through. He was a simple man from a small town in Texas. He had joined the space fleet because he wanted to see the stars. He never expected to be part of a war for survival. He read the alien message 3 times. Then he put down his cards and looked at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for him to say something. "Get me a line to Earth Command," he said quietly. "Right now." Within hours, every human being knew about the threat. The news spread across the planet like wildfire. People gathered in the streets, in their homes, in churches and temples. They watched their leaders on screens and waited for answers. Admiral Catherine Moore was 72 years old. She had served in the fleet for 50 years. She had gray hair, a face full of wrinkles, and eyes that had seen too much. She stood before the United Earth Council in a room deep underground. "The situation is simple," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. 17 alien warships are sitting near Neptune. Each one is bigger than anything we have. Their weapons are more powerful than ours. If they attack, they will cause massive damage. The council members shifted nervously in their seats. Gregory Santos, the chairman, leaned forward. "What are our options, Admiral?" Moore looked around the room slowly. She saw fear in every face. She understood that fear. But she also knew something about her species that these aliens did not. "We have 2 choices," she said. "We can surrender. We can bow down and hope they treat us kindly. We can give up everything our ancestors built and become slaves." She paused and let those words sink in. "Or we can fight." A young man from Europe spoke up. His voice was shaking. "Admiral, you just said their technology is better than ours. How can we possibly win?" Moore turned to face him. She was not angry. She understood his fear, but she needed him to understand something important. "Young man, let me tell you about humans. We started as weak little creatures on a dangerous planet. We had no claws. We had no fangs. We could not run fast or climb well. By all logic, we should have died out millions of years ago." She walked slowly across the room as she spoke. "But we survived. We killed animals 10 times our size with sticks and rocks. When ice covered the land, we adapted. When disease killed millions, we found cures. When we ran out of food, we learned to grow it. And yes, when we fought each other, we became very, very good at it." She stopped and looked directly at the young man. "Those aliens out there have conquered species who gave up without a fight. They've never faced an enemy like us. They have no idea what humans are capable of when our backs are against the wall." Chairman Santos stood up. "The council will vote. All those in favor of fighting? Every hand in the room went up. There was no hesitation. There was no debate. More nodded with satisfaction. Then, we have work to do. I need every ship, every weapon, every person who can hold a gun. We have less than 20 hours to prepare. As the council members rushed to their duties, Moore stayed behind. She walked to a window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien commander was expecting easy prey. He was expecting surrender and submission. He was about to learn the truth about humanity. On the other side of the solar system, High Commander Zoroth was confident of victory. He had done this many times before. The pattern was always the same. Send the ultimatum. Wait for the surrender. Move in and take control. Sometimes there was minor resistance, but it never lasted long. His second-in-command approached him. Commander, we are receiving strange signals from the human colonies. What kind of signals? They appear to be mobilizing their entire population. Military and civilian. They are moving ships, evacuating cities, distributing weapons. Zoroth was mildly annoyed. They are preparing to resist. It appears so, Commander. Foolish creatures. They will learn their mistakes soon enough. Zoroth waved his clawed hand dismissively. When the deadline passes, destroy their outer colonies first. Leave their main planet alone for now. Let them see what happens to those who defy us. As commander, Zoroth settled back on his throne. He had seen this before. Some species needed to be taught a lesson before they would submit. A few destroyed cities, a few million dead, and the survivors always came. Begging for mercy, he had no doubt that humans would be the same. He could not have been more wrong as the hours ticked down. Something remarkable was happening across human space. Factories that had been making consumer goods switched to producing weapons. Scientists who had been studying stars started designing bombs. Teachers and farmers and shopkeepers lined up to receive basic combat training. A grandmother on Mars looked at her grandchildren and picked up a rifle for the first time in her life. A teenager on Europa volunteered to pilot a shuttle loaded with explosives. A retired admiral came out of retirement to command a cargo ship converted into a warship. The deadline approached. The Vexery waited for surrender. It never came. The deadline passed without a single human bowing down. High Commander Zoroth felt a small flash of irritation. He had expected at least some planets to surrender. He had expected panic and chaos. Instead, he received silence. They have refused our terms, his tactical officer reported. No response from any human government. Zoroth stood from his throne and stretched his massive body. Very well. Send 3 cruisers to destroy their colony on Titan. Make sure there are no survivors. That will change their minds. 3 Vexery warships broke away from the main fleet and moved toward the human colony. Each ship was crewed by 500 veteran warriors. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city in minutes. The commanders expected no real resistance on Titan. Lieutenant Commander Amy Grant watched the approaching ships on her radar. She was 34 years old, originally from a farm in Nebraska. She had come to Titan to oversee mining operations. She had never been in combat before, but she had been preparing for the last 18 hours. Are the charges in place? She asked her team. Yes, ma'am. Every mining explosive we have is floating in the debris field. About 2,000 charges total, and the shuttles. 43 volunteers, all ready to launch. Grant closed her eyes for a moment. She knew what she was asking these people to do. She knew most of them would not survive. But she also knew they had no other choice. She opened her eyes and keyed the communication channel. This is Grant to all volunteers. The enemy is approaching. You know what to do. You know why we are doing this? I wish I could promise you we'll come back alive. I cannot. What I can promise is that your sacrifice will mean something. A voice came back over the channel. It belonged to Martha Reed, a 68-year-old maintenance worker who had volunteered to pilot one of the shuttles. Ma'am, we all know what we signed up for. Just make sure the folks back home know we did not go quietly. Grant smiled despite the tears in her eyes. I will, Martha. I promise. The Vexery cruisers entered the debris field around Titan. They were not concerned about the floating rocks and ice chunks. Their shields could handle such minor obstacles. Their sensors detected the human colony ahead, small and defenseless. Then the first mines exploded. The blast was not large enough to destroy a Vexry cruiser, but it was enough to damage the navigation systems of the lead ship. The massive vessel began to drift, its crew scrambling to regain control. "What happened?" the captain demanded. "Explosives hidden in the debris, Commander." "We did not detect them." Before he could respond, more explosions rocked the ship. The humans had placed charges everywhere, hidden among the rocks and ice. Each explosion was small, but together they created chaos. The second cruiser moved to assist the damaged ship. That was when the shuttles launched. 43 small vessels emerged from behind the colony. They were not warships. They were simple mining shuttles, the kind used to transport but each one was packed with every explosive the colony could spare. The Vexry tactical officer watched them approach with confusion. "Commander, the human vessels are not slowing down. They are accelerating toward us." "What?" "That makes no sense. They would be destroyed by the impact." "I believe that is their intention, Commander." The first shuttle struck the damaged cruiser at full speed. The explosion tore a hole in the hull 20 meters wide. 2 more shuttles followed, hitting the same area. Then 3 more. Then 5 more. Martha Reed guided her shuttle toward the breach in the hull. She was thinking about her grandchildren on Earth. She was thinking about the life she had lived and the people she had loved. She was not afraid. "This is for my grandchildren. You scaly bastards," she said calmly. Her shuttle hit the cruiser directly in the reactor core. The explosion lit up the space around. Titan, the mighty Vexry warship, a vessel that had helped conquer a dozen worlds, broke apart into 1,000,000 pieces. Its crew of 500 warriors died instantly. The remaining shuttles regrouped and turned toward the second cruiser. The Vexry commander watched in disbelief as the tiny human vessels accelerated toward his ship. His point defense guns opened fire, destroying shuttle after shuttle. But they kept coming. 17 shuttles had been destroyed in the first attack. Of the 26 remaining, 14 managed to reach the second cruiser. Their impacts did not destroy the ship, but they crippled its weapons and engines. The third cruiser retreated. Its commander sent an urgent message to the main fleet. "Commander Zorath, we have lost 1 cruiser. Another is severely damaged." The humans used civilian vessels loaded with explosives. Their pilots did not eject. They rode their ships into our holes deliberately. On the Eternal Dominion, Zorath received the message in shocked silence. He played back the sensor recordings from the battle. He watched the tiny shuttles accelerating toward his mighty warships. He watched them explode against the hulls. "Who were these pilots?" he asked quietly. His intelligence officer checked the data. "Commander, they were not military. They were miners, engineers, administrators. Many were females. 3 were over 60 years old. Their elderly attacked our warships." "Yes, Commander." The last transmission we intercepted from one of the shuttles indicated the pilot was a grandmother. Zorath stood motionless for a long moment. He had conquered many species. He had seen courage, and he had seen cowardice, but he had never seen anything like this. A species whose grandmothers volunteered for suicide missions. "What kind of creatures are these?" he muttered. His second-in-command approached carefully. "Commander, should we continue the attack on Titan?" Zorath shook his head slowly. "No. Pull back all ships. I want a complete analysis of this species before we proceed. We need to understand what we are dealing with. Commander, we have never retreated from a battle before." Zorath turned to face him. His ancient eyes were troubled. "We have also never lost a cruiser to mining equipment. Something is different about these humans. We need to know what." Back on Titan, Amy Grant surveyed the aftermath of the battle. 27 of her pilots had died. 27 people who had trusted her, who had followed her orders, who had given their lives to protect 50,000. Colonists, she would remember their names forever, but the colony was safe. The enemy had retreated. Against all odds, they had won the first battle. She opened a channel to Earth. This is Titan Colony to Earth Command. Enemy attack repelled. We destroyed one cruiser and damaged another. Civilian casualties are 0. Military casualties are 27. Admiral Moore received the message in her command center. She read it twice, then a third time. A small smile crossed her weathered face. They did it, she said quietly. Those crazy, beautiful people did it. Her aide looked at her with surprise. Admiral, we lost 27 people? Yes, we did. And each one of them will be remembered as a hero. But we also proved something today. We've proved that the Vexery can be hurt. We proved that we will fight back. And we proved that every single human, from soldiers to grandmothers, will defend our species to the death. She straightened her uniform and turned to her staff. Send word to all colonies. The Battle of Titan is our first victory. It will not be our last. Across human space, the news spread quickly. People who had been terrified began to feel hope. If a handful of miners could destroy a Vexery cruiser, maybe humanity had a chance after all. The war had truly begun. Hi, Commander Zoroth ordered his fleet to hold position for 3 days. During that time, his intelligence officers studied every piece of human information they could find. They intercepted broadcasts, downloaded databases, and analyzed thousands of hours of human history. What they discovered made them very uncomfortable. Intelligence Officer Krath presented his findings to the War Council aboard the Eternal Dominion. The assembled commanders were veterans of countless wars. They had never been afraid of any enemy. But as Krath spoke, their confidence began to fade. These creatures have been fighting since before they could write, Krath began. Their entire history is a record of war. They have never known true peace. Even when they stopped fighting external enemies, they fought each other. He displayed images of ancient human battles. Soldiers with swords and shields, knights on horses, armies marching across continents. They started by killing animals larger than themselves using simple tools. Sharpened sticks, rocks, traps. When the large animals were gone, they turned their skills on each other. A senior commander named Voss interrupted. Many primitive species fight among themselves. This is normal evolution. With respect, Commander, you do not understand the scale. Krath changed the display. In a single conflict they call World War II, humans killed 70 million of their own kind. That is more than the entire population of some species we have conquered. And they did it in just 6 years. The room fell silent. During this war, they developed a weapon called the nuclear bomb. A single bomb could destroy an entire city. They used this weapon on 2 of their own cities, killing hundreds of thousands of civilians. Commander Voss leaned forward. They used weapons of mass destruction on their own species. Yes, Commander. And after the war ended, they did not destroy these weapons. They built more. Many more. Within decades, they had enough nuclear weapons to destroy their entire planet several times over. Zoroth spoke for the first time. If they had weapons capable of destroying themselves, why did they not use them? Krath brought up a new display. They developed a strategy they called mutually assured destruction. Both sides knew that if one attacked, the other would respond. Both would be destroyed, so neither attacked. They lived under the threat of their own extinction for how long? Over 300 years, Commander. They still have these weapons today. They simply chose not to use them. Another officer spoke up. This seems like madness. How can any species survive under such conditions? That is the remarkable part, Krath replied. Humans seem to thrive under pressure. Their greatest achievements in science and technology came during periods of war or threat. They went to their moon for the first time because 2 of their nations were competing against each other. Krath changed the display. Again, to show human soldiers in various forms of combat gear across different eras. Individual warriors are equally impressive. A human can remain awake and functional for several days when necessary. They can continue fighting with injuries that would stop most species. There are recorded cases of humans losing limbs and still engaging their enemies. What about their pain response? They have high tolerance for pain. Some of their cultures include rituals where they voluntarily hurt themselves to prove their strength. Their military training often involves deliberate discomfort to teach soldiers to function while suffering. Commander Voss shook his head slowly. This cannot be accurate. No species could survive such constant aggression. I have verified all data, Commander. In fact, I have barely begun to describe their capacity for violence. Krath pulled up more images. Humans have developed biological weapons capable of wiping out entire populations. Chemical weapons that cause death through extreme suffering. Weapons that burn the air itself. They have imagined and created nearly every form of destruction possible. High Commander Zorath rose from his chair and walked toward the display. He studied the images of human warfare with growing unease. He saw soldiers charging into certain death. He saw civilians taking up arms against invaders. He saw the ruins of cities that humans had destroyed and then rebuilt. What is their greatest weakness? He asked. Krath hesitated before answering. Commander, their greatest weakness has always been each other. They fight among themselves constantly. Different nations, different beliefs, different ideologies. They have spent more energy fighting each other than any external threat. Then we should exploit this division. That would be unwise, Commander. When humans face a common enemy, they unite. Their internal conflicts disappear. They have a saying that translates roughly to, "Nothing brings humans together like someone trying to kill all of them." Zorath turned to face his intelligence officer directly. Are you saying our attack has unified them? Yes, Commander. Before our arrival, humans had dozens of petting governments. They were arguing about resources, territory, and politics. Now they are working together with a unity they have never achieved in their history. We have given them something they have always lacked, a single enemy that threatens all of them equally. The war councils sat in troubled silence. These were warriors who had conquered worlds. They had faced countless enemies and defeated them all. But nothing in their experience had prepared them for a species like humanity. Commander Voss finally spoke. What do you recommend, Krath? The intelligence officer chose his words carefully. We have two options. First, we commit our full force immediately and attempt to overwhelm them through sheer numbers. This will be costly. We will lose many ships and many warriors, but we might succeed. And the second option? We leave. We report that this system is not worth the resources required to conquer it. We add it to the list of quarantine zones and advise all Vexery to avoid it forever. Zorath's scales flushed dark with anger. The Vexery do not retreat from lesser species. Commander, with respect, I am not certain these are a lesser species. They are different from us. Weaker physically, shorter lived, less advanced technologically. But in terms of pure aggression and determination, they may be our equals. Perhaps more. You are afraid of soft creatures with no claws. Krath met his commander's gaze without flinching. I am afraid of creatures who use their grandmothers as suicide bombers. I am afraid of creatures who invented nuclear weapons and chose to live with them rather than destroy them. I am afraid of creatures who have been killing each other for thousands of years and somehow still exist. Paused to let his words sink in. Most species we conquer have a survival instinct that leads them to surrender when faced with certain defeat. Humans do not seem to have this instinct. Or rather, their survival instinct takes a different form. They believe that fighting to the death is a valid survival strategy. High Commander Zorath stood silently for a long moment. He thought about his 300 years of service. He thought about the dozens of worlds he had conquered. He thought about his legacy and his honor. We will not retreat, he said finally. We will continue the attack, but we will do so carefully. No more underestimating these creatures, he turned to his tactical officers. Bring the full fleet into attack position. Concentrate our forces and prepare for losses. If these humans want a war, we will give them one. As the council dispersed to prepare for battle, Krath remained behind. He looked at the display showing the small blue planet called Earth. 8 billion humans lived there. 8 billion creatures who had been fighting since the dawn of their existence. He wondered if his people truly understood what they were about to face. Admiral Catherine. Moore stood in the heart of Earth Defense Command, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Hundreds of officers worked at stations around her, coordinating the largest military effort in human history. Screens covered every wall, showing ship positions, resource allocations, and enemy movements. General Victor Hayes approached with a report. He was a tall man with a shaved head and scars on his hands from decades of service. Admiral, all planetary defenses are now active. Every orbital platform is armed and ready. Major cities have been evacuated to underground shelters. Good. What about our offensive capabilities? Hayes shook his head. That is where we have problems. Even with everything we have, we cannot match their firepower. Their ships are bigger, their weapons are stronger, and they have more experience fighting in space. Moore nodded slowly. She had expected this. Then we do not fight their way. We fight our way. Younger officer approached. Commander Lisa Park was a small woman with sharp eyes and quick movements. She led the Naval Research Division and had been working without sleep for 3 days. Admiral, we have been studying the debris from the Titan battle. The Vexery armor is impressive, but it has weaknesses. Explain. ARC activated a display showing the alien hull structure. Their armor is designed to stop energy weapons and large impacts. It is thick and heavy, but it is not designed for what we have in mind, which is continuous small attacks from every direction. Their ships can handle one big hit, but thousands of small hits will wear them down. Their repair systems cannot keep up. Their crews will exhaust themselves responding to constant alerts. General Hayes frowned. We do not have enough ships for that kind of sustained campaign. We will not be using traditional ships, Park replied. She changed the display to show a simple design. These are automated drones. Basic construction, cheap materials, minimal intelligence. Each one carries a small explosive charge and a targeting system. Nothing special on its own. What good are they against Vexery cruisers? Park smiled for the first time in days. On their own? Nothing. But we have 10,000 of them ready to deploy. By tomorrow, we will have 20,000. By the end of the week, 50,000. Moore leaned forward with interest. How are we building them so fast? Every factory in human space has been converted. Facilities that made cars are now making drone bodies. Electronics plants are producing guidance systems. We are even using household robots as parts. Our entire industrial base is now dedicated to one purpose: producing as many weapons as possible. Hayes studied the display with new respect. The Vexery expected to fight our navy. They will be fighting our manufacturing capacity instead. Exactly. Park said. We cannot outgun them, but we can outproduce them. We can overwhelm them with numbers, and every drone we lose is just metal and circuits. Every ship they lose takes years to replace. Returned to Hayes. What about ground forces? If they try to land troops? Every colony has received instructions for resistance. We have distributed weapons to civilian populations. Farmers, teachers, doctors, everyone who can hold a gun has basic training now. If the Vexery land anywhere in this system, they will face opposition from every direction. Guerrilla warfare. Yes, Admiral. It is what humans do best. We have been fighting like this for thousands of years. Hide, strike, disappear. Make the enemy afraid to sleep. Make them bleed for every step they take. Moore nodded with satisfaction. Good. Begin the production of drones immediately. I want constant harassment of the enemy fleet starting within 12 hours. As her officers rushed to execute orders, Moore remained at the central display. She watched the positions of the Vexery ships, still holding near Neptune. They were regrouping after the Titan defeat. They were trying to understand what they faced. She would make sure they never understood until it was too late. Over the next several days, human strategy unfolded. The first wave of drones launched from hidden bases throughout the solar system. They were small, slow, and individually weak. The Vexery destroyed them easily, but more came. And more, and more. High Commander Zorith watched the attacks with growing frustration. Every few hours, another wave of tiny human weapons would appear. His gunners would destroy most of them. Some would get through, and cause minor damage. Then another wave would come. How many have we destroyed? He asked his tactical officer. Approximately 8,000, Commander. And how many more are there? Our sensors detect at least 12,000 additional units approaching from various directions. There appear to be manufacturing facilities on multiple human colonies producing more. Destroy the factories. We have tried, Commander. The humans hide them underground. When we destroy one, 2 more appear elsewhere. And attacking the factories requires exposing our ships to their main weapons. Zoroth slammed his fist against his console. His crew flinched at his anger. This is not warfare. This is being bitten to death by insects. His second-in-command approached carefully. Commander, our ammunition reserves are down to 60%. If these attacks continue at the current rate, we will exhaust our supplies within 2 weeks. What about crew status? Fatigue is becoming a serious issue. Constant alerts mean our warriors cannot rest properly. Morale is declining. Several ships have reported errors and accidents due to exhaustion. Zoroth stared at the tactical display. Thousands of small dots representing human drones surrounded his fleet like a swarm of flies. Each one was insignificant. Together, they were draining his forces, one small cut at a time. Bring the fleet together, he ordered. Concentrate our forces and push toward their main planet. We end this with a direct attack on Earth. The Vexery fleet began to move. 14 massive warships, each one capable of devastating a continent. Accelerated toward Earth, Zoroth believed that a show of overwhelming force would break. Human resistance, Admiral Moore watched them come. She had expected this move. She had planned for it. All units, this is Admiral Moore. Execute Operation Swarm. From every corner of the solar system, human forces converged on the Vexery fleet. Not just drones, but converted civilian ships. Cargo haulers packed with missiles. Passenger liners with hull-mounted weapons. Mining rigs that could throw rocks at incredible speeds. Captain Daniel Price led the Horizon into battle. His ship had been modified with every weapon they could find. His crew had trained constantly for this moment. Target their lead ship, he ordered. Aim for the communication arrays. His weapons officer, a young woman named Samantha Cole, who had been a botanist 2 weeks ago, locked onto the target. Ready, Captain? Fire everything. The Horizon unleashed its weapons alongside hundreds of other vessels. The space around the Vexery fleet erupted in fire and explosions. Most human projectiles were stopped by shields or point defense, but some got through. Always, some got through. On Mars, colonists launched missiles they had built in secret. On Europa, researchers detonated charges that sent ice fragments flying at the enemy. The asteroid miners redirected their equipment to throw rocks at Vexery ships. It was chaos. It was messy. It was completely unlike the organized fleet battles the Vexery were trained for, and it was working. Commander, we have lost shields on 3 ships. Hull breaches on 5 others. 1 cruiser has lost main propulsion. Zoroth watched his display with disbelief. His mighty fleet was being attacked from every direction by an enemy that refused to behave properly. Human vessels darted in, fired their weapons, and escaped before his gunners could respond. Drones struck from above, while missiles came from below. Rocks and ice hit from the sides. This is insane, he muttered. No species fights like this, but humans did. They had always fought like this. When outmatched, they did not line up for honorable battle. They hid and ambushed. They used tricks and traps. They turned anything into a weapon. A transmission came through from the human admiral. Zoroth accepted it despite his rage. Catherine Moore's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired but calm. Hi, Commander Zoroth, she said. I wanted to inform you that this attack will not stop. We will continue hitting your fleet every hour of every day. We will give you no rest, no peace, no moment of safety. You cannot sustain this, Zoroth snarled. You are losing ships. Yes, we are. And we will lose more. But every ship we lose, we replace. Every drone you destroy, we build 3 more. We can sustain this forever if necessary. Moore leaned closer to the camera. You wanted to conquer humanity. Let me explain what that means. It means fighting every single one of us. 8 billion people on Earth, millions more across the colonies. Every single human being is prepared to die rather than surrender to you. You will be destroyed. Apps. But so will you. And even if you destroy this entire system, you will not have one. You will have only proven that the mighty Vexery can bleed, that you can be hurt, that you can be resisted. She straightened in her chair. You have 24 hours to withdraw from our system. After that, we escalate. The transmission ended. Zorath stared at the blank screen for a long moment. His fleet was surrounded. His ships were damaged. His crews were exhausted, and the humans were just getting started. The Vexery did not withdraw. High Commander Zorath could not return to his empire, having lost 2 creatures with soft skin and short lives. His honor demanded victory. His pride would not allow retreat, but the next 3 days would destroy both. Admiral, Moore launched continuous attacks as promised. The humans never stopped, never rested, never gave the Vexery a single moment of peace. Drones attacked in waves of hundreds. Converted civilian ships struck from unexpected angles. Missiles and projectiles came from every direction. The Vexery gunners became experts at destroying human weapons. But their targeting systems were not designed for this kind of warfare. They were built to track large ships in organized formations. Tracking thousands of small, fast targets simultaneously pushed their systems beyond design limits. Mistakes happened. A gunner would track one drone while another slipped through. A targeting computer would overload and reset at the wrong moment. Exhausted crew members would miss an incoming threat. Each mistake meant damage. Each hit, no matter how small, required repair. The Vexery maintenance teams worked without sleep. Supplies ran low. Spare parts became precious. Captain Daniel Price led the Horizon through the chaos. His ship had taken damage in a dozen places, patched with whatever materials the crew could find. Half his original weapons were destroyed. He had lost 6 crew members, but he was still fighting. Captain, enemy cruiser bearing 40 degrees. Their shields are flickering. Price studied the tactical display. The cruiser was one of the larger Vexery ships. It had been hit repeatedly over the past 2 days. Its hull showed scorch marks and breaches. All ships in Sector 7. This is Horizon. I have a wounded target. Concentrate fire on the following coordinates. 12 human vessels responded. Mining ships, cargo haulers, a converted passenger liner. Together, they turned toward the damaged cruiser and accelerated. The Vexery captain saw them coming. He ordered evasive maneuvers, but his ship was too slow. Too damaged. His point defense guns fired wildly, destroying several attackers. Not enough. The human ships unleashed everything they had. Missiles, railgun slugs, mining lasers, even chunks of R launched from electromagnetic catapults. The cruiser's shields collapsed under the combined assault. All ships pulled back, Price ordered. His fleet scattered just as the cruiser's reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the darkness of space. On the Eternal Dominion, Zorath watched another of his ships die. That made 7 cruisers destroyed. 4 more were too damaged to fight. Only 6 vessels remained combat effective. His second-in-command approached with the latest report. His voice was quiet, defeated. Commander, ammunition reserves are at 8%. We have lost over 30% of our warriors. The remaining crews are functioning on minimal sleep. Several ships report system failures due to overwork. What about the humans? They have lost many ships as well, Commander. Perhaps twice as many as us. But they continue to produce more. Our sensors detect additional vessels launching from their colonies every hour. Zorath closed his eyes. He had lived for 300 years. He had conquered worlds. He had believed the Vexery were destined to rule the galaxy. Now he watched that belief crumble. Commander, we are receiving another transmission from the human admiral. Put it through. More appeared on screen. She looked even more tired than before. Dark circles under her eyes, her uniform wrinkled, her voice hoarse. But she was still standing. Still fighting. High Commander Zorath. I see you did not accept my offer to withdraw. That is unfortunate. You will never surrender to inferior creatures. No one asked you to surrender. I asked you to leave. There is a difference. More pause to take a drink of water. I want to tell you something about humans, Commander. Something your intelligence officers may have missed. I know enough about your species. You know about our violence. You know about our wars, but you do not understand why we fight. Moore set down her cup. We fight because we love. We love our families, our children, our homes. We fight because we cannot bear to see those we love threatened. She gestured at something off-screen. Every pilot in those ships has a family waiting for them. Every soldier has someone they care about. They fight not because they want to kill your warriors. They fight because they want their loved ones to be safe. Zorath said nothing. That is why we will never stop, Moore continued. You can destroy our ships. You can kill our soldiers. You can burn our cities. But as long as a single human survives, they will fight to protect those they love. That is who we are. That is what you challenged when you entered our system. She leaned forward. You did not invade a weak species, Commander. You declared war on the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. We have been perfecting the art of killing for thousands of years. We have fought ice ages, plagues, predators, and each other. We survived it all. We will survive you. Your confidence is misplaced. No, Commander. Your confidence was misplaced. You expected easy prey. You found humanity. The transmission ended. Zorath sat in silence for a long time. Around him, his crew continued their work, monitoring systems, tracking enemies, trying to keep their dying ship alive. They were loyal warriors. They deserved better than this. He made his decision, signaled the fleet. All ships are to withdraw to the outer system. We will regroup at the edge of this star's gravity well. Ah! His second-in-command stared at him. Commander, we are retreating. We are preserving what remains of our force. Zorath stood slowly. He felt every one of his 300 years. Send a message to the High Council. Recommend that this system be classified as a quarantine zone. No Vexery vessel is to enter without explicit authorization. What reason shall I give? Zorath looked at the tactical display one final time. Thousands of human weapons still swarmed around his fleet. Hundreds of converted ships waited in the distance. Billions of humans watched from their blue planet, ready to fight until the last one fell. Tell them the truth. Tell them we found a species that has been at war since its beginning. A species that created weapons capable of destroying their own world and chose to keep them anyway. A species whose grandmothers volunteer for suicide missions and whose scientists turn farming equipment into weapons. He paused. Tell them we found the deadliest species in the galaxy. And tell them we were foolish enough to give them a reason to unite. The Vexery fleet withdrew from the Sol system 3 days later. The official report to the Empire classified Earth as a Category Omega threat. This designation had never been used before. It was reserved for dangers that threatened the existence of Vexery civilization itself. Other species in the galaxy took notice. The mighty Vexery, conquerors of 200 worlds, had retreated from a single system. The story spread through trade routes and diplomatic channels. A small, young species had defeated one of the most powerful empires in known space. On Earth, Admiral Moore addressed the survivors. The victory had cost them greatly. Thousands had died. Entire colonies lay in ruins. The solar system would take generations to fully rebuild. But humanity had survived. More than survived. They had won. We have proven something today, Moore said. Her voice carried across the planet through every speaker and screen. We have proven that we will not be conquered. We will not bow down. We will not go quietly into the darkness. She looked up at the stars. The galaxy knows about us now. Some will come as enemies. Some will come as friends. But all of them will know one truth. Humanity fights. We fight for our families, our homes, our future. We fight because giving up is not in our nature. In the centuries that followed, other species would test humanity. Some sought conquest. Some sought alliance. All of them learned the same lesson the Vexori had learned. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest or most advanced. Their bodies were fragile. Their lives were short. They had no natural weapons, no armored skin, no special abilities, but they had something no other species possessed in such: abundance, the absolute refusal to accept defeat. They were the species that had spent their entire existence learning how to survive against impossible odds. They turned everything into a weapon. They found strength in unity. They loved so deeply that they would die to protect those they cared about. They were quite simply the deadliest species alive, and the galaxy would never forget it. The Vexori Empire added Earth to their list of forbidden zones. They placed warning beacons at the edge of the Sol system. The message on those beacons was simple: do not enter. Do not engage. Do not provoke. The inhabitants of this system are extremely dangerous. Some species read those warnings and stayed away. Others read them and became curious. They sent diplomatic missions to Earth, seeking to understand the creatures who had humiliated the Vexori. What they found surprised them. The humans were not monsters. They were friendly, curious, eager to learn about other civilizations. They built trade relationships and cultural exchanges. They shared their technology and their art, but beneath the friendliness, the other species could sense the truth. The humans had not forgotten how to fight. They never would. The same hands that reached out in friendship could become fists in an instant. It was a lesson the galaxy would remember forever. Do not threaten humanity. Do not attack their homes. Do not endanger their loved ones, because if you do, you will face the full fury of the deadliest species alive, and you will lose.